parents have told their children not to wear hijab because they wouldn't get proposals. If feminism tomorrow is about liberty and taking off your clothes, that is going to define who you are. So we should never define ourselves with modern day concepts. We should define ourselves with divine concepts, because the divine laws of Allah will never change. But she goes, what's wrong with women being topless in streets? Why shouldn't? If a man can, why can't we? And I was shocked. I was like, marriage isn't the resolution to loneliness. It is to grow together. Marriage is literally growing together in your life and establishing a family. And family is the building blocks of society. But if someone hasn't found themselves initially before a marriage, then number one, they've probably attracted someone that isn't their true, authentic self. So at the end, they probably end up 10 years down the line and saying, this person does not match my lifestyle. This person isn't who I am. So number one, I think for women out there, you have to realize, really work hard to discover who you are.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to MYF Talks. In today's episode, we'll be having some real meaningful discussions about the struggles that Muslim women face living in the West. My name is Sakina, and I am joined by my co-host Fatima, and we're very excited to get started today.
Assalamu alaikum. The goal of MYF Talks is to go deeper into conversations that matter the most, whether it's balancing faith with modern life, navigating societal pressures, or finding our true identity. And what better way to start things off than by exploring what it truly means to live life as a Muslim woman in the West.
And to help unpack this today, we are honored by a very special guest, Zahra Al-Alawi. She's a TV presenter, a public speaker, and a source of empowerment for Muslim women living in the West, myself included. Today she will be sharing her insight on the struggles of staying true to your identity and navigating through work, family, and faith.
We're so excited to have this conversation, and we know it's going to be a beneficial one. Zahra, thank you so much for joining us today all the way from London. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. It's a pleasure to be here. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for being here today. So we just wanted to get stuck in basically. One of the questions that we wanted to ask was, as someone who has grown up in the UK with your family, you've been working, mashallah, how did you navigate through having such a fulfilling life, mashallah, with your family, your work, and with your faith? How did you navigate through that? And what did you face any struggles coming across, trying to balance everything?
Absolutely. It can be a lot. And I think this world is about struggle. And I think anyone that wants to go through this journey of life without experiencing any struggle in life will not get very far, and they will not be impactful in their life. Everything is struggle, from raising children to working to contributing towards society. Everything will be a struggle. The way I look at it is that Allah has blessed us so much. He's given us health, He's given us eloquence, He's given us the ability to speak, He's given us the ability to walk. And I think it really stems through the fact that throughout my life, I've seen that people sometimes don't have those blessings that we have. And for example, my brother is born disabled. He was born with Down syndrome. He doesn't have the eloquence in his speech as I do. And he's only 4 years younger. My niece, which was the exact same age as me, during my sister's labor, oxygen was cut off for a few seconds and she became completely disabled, cannot walk, cannot talk, is fed through a tube. So when you see people that do not have these blessings in life, you take those blessings, we feel like we take those blessings for granted. Yeah. So throughout my life, I'm saying that Allah has put us in this world for a purpose. He's given us these blessings of the eloquence of our speech, of our ability, of our intellect, of our development of our brain. So we need to contribute back. I think this is the least that we could do. So I've always looked at my life and thinking that I am fortunate to be healthy, to be able to do what I can do. So it's about contributing back. In Islam, and I've always said this, in Islam, in the eyes of God, men and women are equal in the eyes of God in terms of worship. Now, of course, in certain dynamics, a man is a guardian over a woman, let's say in marriage, but in the eyes of God, in terms of worship, in terms of contributing, in terms of amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar, in terms of contributing towards society, men and women are equal. So I think, first of all, it's the encouragement of my father that really, having 10 daughters as my father did.
Mashallah.
Mashallah. So he really believed in women's rights, and he believed that women have a place in society and in contribution to the progression of Islam and everything according to that. And also seeing other people struggle. I've never looked at struggle as a bad thing. I see struggle as a way of getting forward, as the way of progressing our life, contributing something. And I think it's such a waste of a life for anyone to sit at home, just watch Netflix, waste their time and not contribute anything back. I think every day someone should be striving towards doing better. Every day someone should be striving towards contributing more. And I think that is my driving force in life. If I be honest with you, that is my driving force.
Absolutely, and I think you've put it beautifully. I think sometimes it's very easy to get lost in our daily life, whether it's struggles, whether it's the kids are driving me crazy, or for me personally, I was juggling with my work, and I felt like it was kind of taking over my life a little bit, and I kind of felt like I was prioritizing that over my faith, which the guilt started eating me up. But then when I looked around me, alhamdulillah, we've got examples like yourself, and I think, and I'm hoping to see more Shia speakers, more female speakers even, to come up so that we can follow you guys' examples, as I do think that you guys are definitely paving the way for us. Staying on the topic of marriage, marriage is a beautiful part of our faith. However, nowadays, I feel like with the social media's influence, it's kind of become a race now. It's very easy to see people who are getting married or those who want to find their nasib, but they're struggling. What advice do you have for young Muslim women who may want to get married, but they may have not necessarily worked on themselves yet? They haven't found themselves, but I feel like with societal pressures, the focus is very much on, for us women, once you get married, then, your life is fulfilled, then have your kids, then take care of the house. But it's very important, I think, to take a step back to find who you are first.
Definitely.
How did you navigate that?
Definitely, I think it's very important. I'm glad you said about finding yourself first. It's very, very important for someone to find themselves first before they enter a marriage, because whoever you are, you will attract. And if you are not in the place where you are established or where you have found yourself, you will find yourself later on in life. That's why many people get married and you see the two couples going in completely different directions and they grow separately. And that is very sad, because then someone that has started the marriage isn't who they are. Of course, people are going to go through growth during a marriage throughout the years. We're always growing. But if someone hasn't found themselves initially before a marriage, then number one, they've probably attracted someone that isn't their true, authentic self. So at the end, they probably end up 10 years down the line and saying, this person does not match my lifestyle. This person isn't who I am. So number one, I think, for women out there, you have to realize, really work hard to discover who you are. Work on yourself before bringing anyone in your life. And marriage isn't the resolution to loneliness. It is to grow together. Marriage is literally growing together in your life and establishing a family. And family is the building blocks of society.
Absolutely.
If we don't have strong family units, we don't have a strong society. So we have to have strong family units. And unfortunately, the divorce rates are rising. Of course, there are situations where divorce is out of the individual's hand, if there's abuse and there's domestic violence or there's any sort of abuse happening, of course. But there's a lot of reasons where divorce could be avoided. So first of all, discovering the self. Islam always emphasizes on discovering who you are. We have a hadith that says that if you know yourself, you know your Lord. And work on yourself. So that's number one. Before marriage, working on yourself. But number two, I've spoken to a lot of girls through lecturing internationally, is that a lot of girls get disheartened if they reach a certain age and they're not married. We have to recognize that some things are in Allah's hands, and Allah's timing, as the Prophet and Imam said, is greater than our timing. Allah
Absolutely.
knows when something is. Something can be delayed, and there's many situations, even in my life, where things have been delayed, but then you see the wisdom behind that delay. So any sisters that are not married, there is a reason for it, and there's a blessing within that delay as well. So it's qismah at the end of the day. Someone can try to get married, but it's the qismah that someone that is good for you will come. I got married at a very young age. I got married 19. Alhamdulillah. So, 17 years of marriage. But at the same time, I have nieces now that are in their 30s and are not married. It's not about the individual, and it's not a reflection of that if that individual is worthy or not. Sometimes it's just not qismah. The right person hasn't just come in that time. So I think it's the belief that everything will fall into place. Everything will fall into place. Allah has planned our life beautifully. And also remembering that comparison is the killer of joy. We should not compare our life. Everyone, my journey is a journey, your journey will be a journey, and your journey will be a journey.
Yeah.
We all have our unique journeys, and it's not going to look like each other at all. You know, everyone will have kids at a certain age, everyone will have struggles, their own journey, and we have to remember that. Never compare marriage or when we get married, or if that person has got married, to anyone else, because focus on your journey. And I think that is the best thing that someone can do.
Beautifully said. And do you have any advice for the parents that might be listening to you right now? Because I completely understand they might want to fulfill their responsibility, and it's a great obligation. And if I remember correctly, I think I had read a hadith from the Prophet, peace be upon him, that marrying your daughter is your ticket to Jannah. And I feel like sometimes parents can also rush into that. So what advice would you give to them, to any parents who might be maybe unintentionally pressurizing their kids into getting married, or even getting themselves overwhelmed with that obligation itself?
Definitely. I think, first of all, understanding that every parent wants to see their kids settled, established, and in a stable relationship. I think it is the comfort of every parent. I remember when my father passed away on his deathbed, I think one of the things which brought him so much content was to see his daughters that were all married, established, with their kids, with their family, and knowing that he's leaving this life and his daughters are settled and are Allah yarhamah. So I think it's for every parent, I think it brings comfort for them to see their children in a solid relationship and having a sense of stability. And even as a parent myself, I would love to get to a stage where I see all three of my children settled and married. But I think also as parents, we have sometimes that yearn to see our kids married can sometimes bring about the rush to get them married. And I think it's about listening to all partners. The parents should listen to the child, and the child should listen to the parent, because sometimes even the children, they just don't want to get married, and they get pressured by the modernity and the secular values of this world. And I want to study, and I want to travel, and I don't want to get married. And I think that is also a incorrect kind of outlook to have, because you could do all that while being married. And I done all that while being married. I hadn't even graduated from university when I got married. I was in the process of university, and I graduated, and I got my degree, and I worked, and I done all of that while being married. So I think it's an understanding between both parents and children. So a parent does want to see their child get married, but at the same time you have to listen to that individual. And I mean, in Islam anyway, you cannot force your child to get married. It makes the marriage invalid. Invalid.
Yes.
If you force your daughter or your son to get married, it has to have full acceptance from the individual. So it's about listening to both, and also for the child to also recognize the parents' comfort in knowing that their child is you want to see the best for your children.
Absolutely.
So I think as long as the conversations are open, and for the child to be open, I mean, if the parent recommends someone, be open to it and see, okay, maybe does that fit with my values? Does that fit? Is that what I'm looking for? If not, then say no. If yes, then yes. So parents have a lot of wisdom, and I see a lot of youngsters, they come to me and they say, my parents told me to do this, to that. And I say, all the time in these events, and I'm thinking, there is wisdom in our parents' words, and sometimes we don't see that wisdom because we know best as we think. But there is wisdom, and I think people will not realize that until they see their parent get buried and leave this world, and then you really begin to realize, no, our parents did know best. And also, there is no one that will love us in this world more than your parents.
Absolutely.
That's 100%. So there is a lot of wisdom, but I think communication needs to be open between both.
What would you say in the flip side? I've seen a lot of cases where there's parents who have said their children want to get married, and they're in university, they're 17, sometimes 18, 19, and their parents are like, no, you need to finish your degree. You need to have a job, especially for the boys' side. You need to have a job. You need to be stable before we can get you married. And that could cause them to possibly fall into haram or into things that they probably would have avoided if they had gotten married. What would you say to children and parents in that circumstance?
Definitely. I think you brought up a very important point, because unfortunately, it's true that sometimes it's the parents that are the ones that are holding the child back. There's even cases in some communities where parents have told their children, there's certain communities where they will tell their child not to wear hijab because they wouldn't get proposals. And I was shocked to know this. Yes, 100%. And so even a girl, she was messaging me and emailing me constantly. My parents will not let me wear hijab because they said people will not propose to you if you are wearing hijab, because they see it as backwards, they see it as you're not progressed. So sometimes the parents are the issue, and we have to admit this. Unfortunately, it is true. So sometimes the parents do hold them back. The parents have to also remember, in this day and age, where the world is hypersexualized, if you do not safeguard, marriage is a safeguard for an individual. If you do not safeguard that child can fall into sin. All avenues are opened in this country. It's so easy to slip into sin without anyone knowing. So parents have to realize that marriage is a safeguard. It will safeguard your child from slipping into sin, from the temptations of society, the temptations of this world. And Hadith constantly talks about the temptations of this world, how this world will make people go astray. So marriage is a safeguard. So with parents, and I think if you have a parent that is not listening and say, no, you're not getting married at a young age, there is certain avenues that you can speak to scholars that can be a kind of partnership, or can be someone that can be the medium between you both.
Yeah.
And I think it's always important, if a person has the urge to get married, to then project that to their family. There's nothing wrong with that. The marriage is half of your religion. You're not doing anything bad. And the parents should listen, because God forbid that child has any temptations and falls into sin. That will also be the responsibility of the parent.
Absolutely.
And the parent will be questioned for it as well. So I think, once again, it's all down to communication. With parenting, it's all down to communication. Once that line of communication has broken, that's when a lot of problems happen in marriage. And you see this all the time when the relationship, that's why even in the hadith it says to be a friend to your child. After a certain age, for the first 7, you discipline them, you teach them, and then you guide them, and then you become a friend to them. You have to have that friendship and that open communication with your child, because once communication is broken, that's when stuff start happening behind people's back. People don't listen, and you don't begin to know what your child is thinking, and everything is behind closed doors.
Yeah.
When things go behind closed doors, that's when the problems happen.
The secrets start.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think a big thing that plays a part in that is your relationship with your child. If it's based on fear, then they won't feel comfortable coming to you, even if they get into a situation.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, I've grown in a household where our relationship has been based on respect. So out of respect, I won't do certain things, and out of respect, my mother will accept my wishes, or she'll come to me and ask my opinion. And I think, and seeing I have a younger sister, and she thrives in the community. She's worked for MYF, and she's been the sister for a year, mashallah. And for her to be able to do that, she's come from a strong foundation and a family of women where we've supported each other. But also my mother's also led by example, by coming out into the community, taking steps where, not caring too much about what people think. I think sometimes parents can fall in that trap of,
that can be a huge deal.
What's my family back home going to say, and stuff like that. So kind of really prioritizing your child's mental health is so important. And in the same way, it's really important to recognize for our parents, it's also their first time parenting. I think myself personally, when I was younger, sometimes, I'd have a conversation or an argument with my mother, and I'd be like, well, she doesn't understand me, or like, she's the elder, she's supposed to know. But then I think as I'm growing up, and of course there's so much more to learn, I feel like I've understood that just the way, like, I feel like, well, I've never done this, well, she's never done this. It's her first time as well. And I know there's a time's going to come when we become parents and we understand our mothers a lot more and our parents a lot more. So inshallah, that'll be a good thing. But in accordance to that, modern feminism and Islam, I think there's a lot of conversations on rise, especially against social media, and you'll see that's an ongoing theme in our conversation. Because I don't know about you, I'm chronically on TikTok. I do learn, I feel like, a lot of valuable skills on there, but again, I do think sometimes it has wasted a lot of my time as well. But you see a lot of Muslim women, or like the da'wah, the podcasts and stuff, where they will discuss modern feminism and women's Islamic rights. Of course, we've got Sayyidah Khadija, Bibi Fatima Zahra as our perfect examples of role models. So do you think, is there a balance between modern feminism that supports the Islamic rights that we have as women, or do you think the clash is much?
That's interesting. I think definitely there's been a rise in conversation in terms of feminism and masculinity, to be honest, and the roles of men and women, and that has been the central of discussions for, I think, for the past couple of years. And that is, believe it or not, that is a topic that has come up constantly, feminism. I mean, he was, as you can see, the cameraman, the trustee, was the host for our program in the Muslim convention. Yeah. And we were doing a workshop. The workshop was about individualism. Where did it end up going to? Feminism. And I think majority of the workshop was discussing feminism, and it became heated. It became a heated discussion about feminism. And there were sisters that were talking about modern day feminism, and then there was a speaker alongside us. There was a sheikh and speaker and a professor that absolutely was like, absolutely not. Like, feminism is the evil of society. So you find people that have very, very strong views about modern day feminism. The question, and it always comes up, but the question I always ask is, what is feminism? If I had to tell you to describe what feminism is, a lot of people don't give a very definite answer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because feminism is very, if I told someone to define feminism, according to which feminist group, they will give you a different definition. Absolutely. You get the extreme, and then you get the middle, and then you get individuals that just say feminism is just all about giving women their rights. So I think feminism, the word feminism, has very negative connotations now because of the extreme end of what feminism is. Mm-hmm. So modern day feminism, I think it stems, if you look at the core principles of feminism, it is about equality and the rights of women, and it's about giving women their rights, or probably equality between man and woman. But in a certain aspect, Islam also gives rights to women. Absolutely. But modern day feminism has its negatives as well. And I think we should never define ourselves by a concept that is ever changing and that is evolving. If we say we are, and some sisters have come up to me and said, we're feminists, we believe in feminism. Mm. And I said, but why would you define yourself with a concept that is ever evolving? Yeah. If feminism tomorrow is about liberty and taking off your clothes, that is going to define who you are. Yeah. So we should never define ourselves with modern day concepts. We should define ourselves with the concepts divine concepts, because the divine laws of Allah will never change. Yeah. If I say that I'm a Muslim woman and I have the rights brought to me by Islam, that is never going to change. It's never going to evolve. In 10 years' time, it's not about women becoming this, because it will never change. The divine laws of Allah will not change. Absolutely. If I connect myself to the concepts that are man-made, like the concept of feminism, that will ever evolve and ever change. And tomorrow, if they say women have the rights to take off their clothes and do whatever they want, you're defining yourself to a man-made concept that is changing. And why would we do that? So I think feminism in itself has aspects. The core principles do stem from Islam. Yeah. We know that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ brought rights to women. He brought rights to women. He gave women rights in terms of earning, in terms of even earning their own money, and in terms of ownership, and the rights within marriage, and the rights to go out, and the rights to speak, and the rights even within a marriage. But at the same time, modern day feminism, for example, the aspect of modesty within modern day feminism clashes with Islam's aspect of modesty. That completely clashes. Modern day feminism is about you choose what you wear, what you don't. But at the same time, Islam says that we are biologically different. Our bodies are different. So the clothing aspect of men and women are going to be different. You cannot equate both. And then sometimes it goes into, when we go too deep into the modern concept of the equality between men and women, sometimes we're doing disjustice to women themselves. My sister lives in a Scandinavian country. Within that Scandinavian country, after a woman gives birth, the maternity leave and the paternity leave between man and woman are divided equally between the man and woman. Oh, wow. Yeah, the man can't say, I'm going to give my paternity leave to the mother and she can stay at home a bit longer. No, if you give it up, you lose that. So at the same time, how is that equal? No. If your woman has given birth, has physically given birth, and she needs time to recover, how can you divide then that time off work equally? And you cannot even give it to the other partner. So sometimes when you come too deep into equality between man and woman, and you say men and women should be exactly the same, we're not exactly the same.
We're not.
Yeah, we're not biologically the same. I'm not going to go out and have the responsibility to earning money for 5 kids. For a family of 5, 3 children and me and my husband. That shouldn't be a responsibility within a woman's shoulder. And I'm so glad Islam has said it's not a burden that should be on a woman's shoulder. And man needs to provide for us. Yeah. So when you say this sometimes, even I've said this too, I've done an interview with a feminist. And she even said, like in the podcast, it was an interview with Ahl Bayt TV many years ago. And in the podcast, I said, modern day feminism, they say, even a woman can be topless. I just said it as a thing. She goes, yeah, what's wrong with a woman being topless in the streets? Why shouldn't? If a man can, why can't we? And I was shocked. I was like, okay. And then she said, and I said to her, well, I'm glad that a man has to provide for a woman because I don't want that. She goes, oh, this is absolutely insulting. I want to provide for my family. That's fine.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead and provide for your family. No stopping you. But some of us do not want that burden. Absolutely. So at the same time, I think there is extremes, and we have to recognize that the core principles may align with the core principles of women's rights. But at the same time, the modern day feminism, I wouldn't say I'm a feminist. I wouldn't encourage people to say they're feminists because it's ever evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wanted to ask, so like with the youth these days, with the women that we look up to, a lot of them are on social media, they're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, and many of them will start off as hijab influencers and they're showing amazing things that are really good and the youth pick up these things. But then sometimes those same influencers going through their own struggles will sometimes take the hijab off or gradually will, do things that are that we should be looking up to. What would you say to youth like in this day and age who look up to social media influencers and majoritively wear makeup or sometimes, have, a little bit of Botox, a little bit of, something to enhance themselves? Because at the end of the day, as women, we have this innate feeling to want to beautify ourselves, don't we?
100%.
Like I used to be a makeup artist, and I used to think that was like the best thing I could do and I'll make other people feel beautiful. But then as I learned more about my deen, I kind of distanced myself away from that, which was really difficult to do. Well, what advice would you give to, women in this day and age to not make that the center of their life, basically?
100%. I think with social media, and I've graduated with a media and television degree, and within my studies, we talked about the influence that social media has. It can influence someone to the extent where they can change themselves, the way they talk, the way they look, the way they do. And it can completely change themselves. The thing with social media now, and the problem with it is that there's so much emphasis on external beauty. And I say this because a lot of people have now, I would say, have some sort of body dysmorphia. And I would honestly say that. There's girls in the community, even in London, that have come to me and said that before, that we never was conscious of our nose, of our lips, of our cheeks, of our face, of the way we look. But because we are constantly looking at images of people improving their facial features, it influences people. And they end up saying, oh my God, what if I can twerk this and do this and do this? And with all honesty, I think we will never reach a stage of satisfaction, and that is the problem. Yeah. No matter what we do to try and change our appearance, we will never reach a stage where we're satisfied. We'll always think more and more and more. Social media projects an unrealistic version of beauty. It's unrealistic, it's unattainable, and it's fake. The amount of editing, the amount of lights, and the way it makes someone, even now we're sitting here, sometimes with lights, there's not much lights here, but sometimes in studios, like for example, there's been times I've gone to a studio and, even if you have a slight spot, with these lights, it can completely wash out someone's face and looks like the person has absolutely the greatest skin. And greatest skin. So that is with just lighting. Imagine what these beauty influencers do. There is lighting, there is filters that are being put on. It's an unrealistic standard of beauty. It is. So what we do is we consume social media. We look at social media and we consume all this, and we look at ourselves in very dull lighting and in the mirror, and we're thinking our faces are not perfect. So then what happens is that we see, then obviously now, I don't know why, my whole social media feed, I don't know why, it's all about fillers and injections. I don't know if it's everyone else, and I'm thinking, why is it getting pushed on?
It is.
But then at the end, when we see this unrealistic standard of beauty, we then look at ourselves and we in real life and thinking, why do not we look like that? And then it creates some sort of body dysmorphia, lack of self-esteem, and it really breaks on a woman because, as you said, innately a woman does want to feel beautiful. Yes. Beautification is something that I think every woman wants to feel beautiful. So then when they are consuming all this, it will consciously or subconsciously affect someone's self-esteem. Yeah. And then we're thinking, how do we achieve that aspect of beauty? And then we go follow these procedures, but we'll never reach that stage of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Another thing is consuming social media. You talked about influencers. whoever is in social media, as it goes back to our discussion before, we need to know ourselves and be strong in ourselves. And I think a lot of these influencers have probably started out on social media very young, and they haven't really established themselves. They weren't really strong in who they are, their identity and their morals. And with social media, even me, my page is an Islamic page. It's completely Islamic. I mean, I'm wearing black all the time.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you get people that say, can you promote this product, skincare? Can you promote? Believe it or not, last time I got a what's it called, agency that had messaged and said, there's an ad for McDonald's. Can you? I'm
Not
honestly,
McDonald's.
honestly, I'm not even joking. I even showed my family. It was the agency, and then I researched the agency. It was actually an established agency within the UK, and they said there's an advert for McDonald's. I think they're looking for a hijabi woman for that advert. I don't know if it ended up going ahead or not.
How long ago
And
was this?
about 2 years ago.
Oh,
2
okay.
3 years ago.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they said, can you put forward your portfolio for this casting? And I'm thinking, my page is an Islamic page. I'm wearing all black. I'm talking about religion. Why would I put my portfolio forward for a casting?
Yeah.
The thing is with social media is that when these influencers go on, they get all these the external influences. So this person say promote this. By the end of it, they've lost their values. They've lost who they are. They don't know who they are.
Yeah.
So you go down a rabbit hole, and if you're not strong in who you are, you will fall down a rabbit hole within social media. And the fact is that society will never accept us as Muslim women. If we want to go to mainstream society, they're not going to accept us being fully clothed in terms of that. We will have to lose aspects of ourselves. We have to confine ourselves in order to fit in to this, to mainstream media. So suddenly, that's why you see with the influencers, suddenly they remove their hijab, not even remove their hijab, suddenly they loosen up their hijab, and then they loosen up this, and then they loosen up.
Subtle, doesn't
It's
it?
a very subtle, every single hijabi influencer that's removed their hijab is a subtle progression, and they cannot even realize it until they get to a stage where it's like the hijab is coming off.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that you have all these vulnerable Muslim women that the individuals that follow hijabi influencers are probably very shaky in their hijabi journey as to begin with.
Yeah.
So they follow these influencers as inspiration, as, okay, I'm going to make it cool to wear the hijab. I want to know how it feels like to be cool wearing the hijab. So they're already shaky in their journey. And then you have an influencer where you attach so much aspiration to. And then that hijabi influencer takes off the hijab. And what happens with all these people that have followed them?
Yeah.
And the effect is like a ripple effect.
It is.
I know a sister that wears a turban hijab, and I said to her, why do you wear the turban hijab? She goes, well, I saw some, YouTube tutorials about wearing it, and a lot of people that ended up wearing the turban hijab is because of social media, and it's because of the tutorials that they watch. So we have to be very conscious as consumers of social media. As you said about TikTok, you're on TikTok. There is a good side to TikTok. There's a lot of valuable information on there, but then there's a negative as well. And I think with all social media, we have to be conscious consumers, knowing what we are consuming. Our soul, we should protect our soul, just like we protect our physical body. What we are conscious of what we put into our mouths, what we eat. The same thing is with our soul. We have to be very conscious as what we're feeding our soul.
Absolutely,
If we're feeding our soul negativity, and that's the thing. Another thing I would say is that we need more people from our community to be on social media to counteract the negatives as well, because our daughters will end up on social media. They will end up consuming social media. If they don't see people like us, if they don't see people watching religion, they are going to go watch people that are talking about things that will destroy their self-worth. So it's very important that we counteract this presence on social media and portray people from our community, women from our community. There's so many positive, strong women in our community. If that was out there, then I'm sure our sisters will not go towards the negatives.
And I think you've put that beautifully, but I think it's also very important to acknowledge some of the influences that have come out that have inspired so many young girls to put their hijab on.
Yeah.
I know when I personally wore it when I was 7, and it was out of excitement. Alhamdulillah, I had my mum who's been a hijabi. And some girls don't have that. Maybe their mother doesn't observe the hijab.
Yeah.
So for them to have that source of inspiration outside, I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think I've also seen, those individuals that have taken the hijab off, I think that society can be really harsh as well. I think that sometimes we don't humanize people.
Yeah.
Once they reach a certain limit of views that they get, or certain amount of followers, I think all these like keyboard warriors, I feel like nowadays that you have some of the things that you wouldn't say to a person on their face. It's very easy to hide behind a profile and comment it. I think it's very important to be conscious of what we say to others, especially these young girls who they're young. Maybe it doesn't. I think regardless of age, hijab is something. Hijab is a very personal journey for everybody.
Yeah.
I understand. Obviously, Islam has its rules, and there's reasons why we do it, and it's to protect ourselves and to protect our souls. But to those girls who have struggled and are struggling with their own hijab journey, what would you say to them? Has there been a time in your life where you maybe struggled with your personal journey, and what did you do to keep yourself motivated?
Definitely. I think, as I said earlier, life is a journey of struggles. So we will all struggle. There's another thing that you said about keyboard warriors, that there's a saying that says never judge someone that is sinning differently to yourself, because we're all sinners. Absolutely. Every single person on this earth, no matter how high or low, we just sin differently, and we sin to different degrees. That's it. We are all sinners. So we cannot be, I would never sit there and judge another sister or another individual for sinning, because, you know, at the end of the day, any of us can stumble and fall at any time.
Very
exactly.
easily.
It could be
Absolutely.
us. So never, I would say no one should ever judge any sister, even if she takes off her hijab, because God forbid your child ends up taking off their hijab. You never know what could come around the corner. So, and also recognizing that sister is struggling. And I've seen sisters that have taken off the hijab and they are honestly struggling. It's not about, I am just, you know, I'm taking it off to have fun, and has people say like, woohoo, like, no, they are struggling. And I feel so, like, even one sister sat down and she first took off her hijab where she'd done it behind her parents' back. And she would go to college, put it on, and then she would take it off in college and go back. And the girl was just struggling to fit in. Honestly, she was just struggling to fit in. She had never had a bad bone in her body. She just really struggling with hijab. And I think when someone is struggling and then I ended off, you know, we're taking off her hijab publicly. Now she's put it back, and her hijab, mashallah, is excellent hijab.
Mashallah.
So you have to realize that, you know, at any time, this sister could come back to the religion, could wear hijab so beautifully, and you do not want to be the cause of her going even further astray or encouraging her even further.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing. I think criticism, people putting people down, people saying, oh, this girl's not wearing hijab properly and that girl's not doing this, is probably the worst thing you can do, because never be the source of someone moving away from the religion even further. There's people that struggle in all aspects of religion. There's people that struggle with keeping up their prayers and are unable to keep up their prayers. There's sisters that struggle with hijab. There's people that struggle.
Things that are not so public.
Not so public, exactly. I mean, hijab is a very public display, and that's why a lot of people concentrate on that, because it's very apparent. But there's a lot of struggles. There's even people in our community that probably end up not fasting a couple of days and breaking it without anyone knowing, just between them and God. Hijab is also a concept between them and God, and it's a struggle. So I think it's very negative, and unfortunately, we have people that put people down that struggle, and I think that's the worst thing. If we all come together as a supportive system, I will probably can guarantee you that a lot of sisters will probably come back. They will go through that journey of struggle. They'll probably stumble across, and then they'll come to a sense of maturity, and then they will probably come back if they have that supportive system.
Absolutely.
So I would always say to people externally, always be that supportive system for the sisters. Never put anyone down, never criticize, never do any of that. Be that support system that you uplift others, not put people down.
Absolutely.
So that's number one. Number two, for anyone struggling as sisters, you know, and I have to say this, you know, throughout, now I've been lecturing for 20 years and I've come across a lot of sisters that have taken off the hijab. It is very, very rare. And I think it's only probably happened once in 20 years where a sister has come and said, I've taken off my hijab because I do not believe it's a requirement of Islam, and this is my evidence, X, Y, and Z. That's probably happened only once, I
thought it was more common than that.
Absolutely not. So the majority of people that take off their hijab is probably down to Islamophobia or social pressures, or trying to fit in terms of trying to get someone's attention or fitting in certain environments or certain workplaces, working in the corporate world. So it's aspects of that. So so I would say that in that aspect, we should be the support system.
And I think it's so important to, as a community, for us to evolve and just come out of that mindset of it's very easy to look at somebody and just be like, oh, like, why is she doing it that way? Why is she doing this that way? And for us to come together as women, as a community, to know that and to show them that it's okay that you're going through this, you're human, and we understand. And once you're ready, we'll be right here to support you. I've also, absolutely, I think I've also seen many women on social media that were non-Muslims that converted, and it was a very positive environment where people, they didn't know each other, but they sent each other scarves, hijabs, just to celebrate that person coming into Islam.
Yeah, that's
and that
beautiful.
motivated, and if we can do that as a community, just even outside of us Muslims, it can be very inviting for people who might be thinking about becoming Muslim, but when they see, the requirements of it, sometimes it can be overwhelming, it can be difficult, it can be a stepping stone. We're not going to get it perfect. It's all about taking it one step at a time.
Yeah, 100%.
I 100% agree. And sometimes I feel like sisters or brothers who do come to Islam and they're new, they sometimes get put off by the Muslims. Like they'll be intrigued and interested and starting to fall in love with the actual deen itself. But then when they see how other Muslims portray it across, they have to, it kind of puts them off a little bit, which is sad.
Yeah, I mean, Islam is perfect, but Muslims are not.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. So I think people to make the clear distinction between the two as well.
That's really important. And I've come across cases where, like sisters will be new to Islam, or even just, people who are born in the religion. They'll be, wearing the hijab loosely or have their hair like showing a little bit, like you touched on it before. But then the other people will be like, well, you're not doing it properly, just don't do it at all.
You might as well take it off.
Take it off.
Yeah. Yes,
why are you wearing
that
it?
sentence.
Or, you're not
those
praying
comments.
properly.
Yeah.
You're only a Ramadan prayer or a Ramadan faster, just don't pray at all. What's the point? And it's really off-putting.
Yes.
And that's something that I heard of when I was growing up in my community. And I saw a lot of people go, oh, okay. Because it's easier to just go, that person said, that elder auntie said, I'm just going to take it off.
I'm not doing it right. I might as well not do it
And there
anymore.
have been people that have taken it off for that specific comment that's been said to them.
Yeah.
And that is now even a concept that even women themselves harbor. So sometimes you tell people, or like we have the hijab discussion, or why are you not wearing hijab? Well, when I'm ready and when I fully can do it. And it stems into people's then concept of why they should wear hijab. I've never understood why people say that. If you're going to do it properly. Same. It's like, no, every step towards Allah is a step that should be celebrated. 100%. Every single step.
Yeah.
So even if it's half and half, it's a step towards God, it should be celebrated. So it goes back to what I said earlier, you don't want to be the reason why someone completely takes off the hijab, God forbid.
Yeah.
So even if a sister is wearing half and half, as you say, they shouldn't be saying that, just take it off. No, encourage your sister that she's taken that first step towards God. That should be celebrated.
Absolutely.
Whether you believe it's right or it's complete or not. It's nothing. No one has a place to move someone further away from their religion. So any step, I mean, even if someone prays one prayer, people should never say, oh, if you're going to pray one, might as well not even pray at all.
Not pray any. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's not. So every step towards God is a step that should be celebrated, should be encouraged, and inshallah, within every step, you get closer to God.
Inshallah. And Sister Zahra, like as one of one of the first I know, like women speakers who, has, stepped up, and mashallah, you mentioned when you were like 20 or 21 when you started public speaking and being, an Islamic speaker. How would you encourage the youth, and even not the youth, even like someone my age, to start doing that in their life? Because to be honest, we need more women speakers. We really do. And you mentioned it in the Muslim convention as well. Like we need more women speakers. How can we encourage ourselves and our children and our family members, people around us, to fill in that gap and to be there for our community?
Definitely.
Sorry, did you say you were 16 or 17 when
I
you
was
did
16,
your first
when I done my first speech. Yeah.
Oh, you were 16.
1920 was when Ahl Bayt TV started.
Oh,
so
yes,
that
yes,
was
sorry,
kind
my
of
mistake.
full-time. I think it was like twice a week programming for Ahl Bayt TV, the show Women's View. But no, I started my first lecture at 16. And during that time, I mean, you're around the same age as I am. Yeah. Around that time, the rise of Islamophobia was great. And it was the whole September the 11th, the whole Islamophobia. Islam just suddenly came on the map. And with all honesty, I think every woman at that time either had verbal abuse or physical abuse in terms of the hijab. Yeah. Everyone. Yeah. And you could feel it. Like after a terrorist attack, as they call it, after that, you could feel the tension going out in your hijab. And I think at that time, I really felt like there should be representations of the religion as women, because women we are the walking symbols of Islam. We are the flags of Islam. We are easily identified as Muslim women when we're going out. Yeah. And I think we should be out there. So that's what really encouraged me back then. And I think now, especially when you look at the number one reason why Islam, if you look at this statistically, the number one reason why Islam is attacked or in this current day is number one, terrorism, number two, women's rights. Number 2 is women's rights. So people attack Islam because of women's rights and about hijab. The fact is, we as Muslim women, our voice is very powerful. Number 1, we are women. We are within the religion. We chose to be Muslim women. We chose to wear the hijab. It is such a powerful statement. And sometimes we underestimate the power of our voice and how much change that we can do and how much we can iron out the misconceptions that is present. So I would really encourage women to go out there and they start. But at the same time, I recognize that we all have our own roles to play within society. Not everyone wants to become a female speaker, and that's fine. Not everyone wants to become a public speaker, and we all have our roles. Some people are very eloquent and have the confidence to go out there and speak in an audience of hundreds and thousands. And some people have the talent in their writing, and they can write beautifully, and they can publish books and write blogs, and others can do great work within their own communities. I think as women, we need to find our role and how we can contribute back to society. It is an Islamic requirement to contribute back towards society, to enjoin good and forbid evil. That is it's a wajib upon us as men and women to enjoy good and forbid evil.
Not many people know that either.
Not many people know that, and it's within the Quran. It's within the Quran that it tells men and women, al-amr bil-ma'ruf wal-nahy 'anil munkar is wajib upon men and women. Now, of course, to a certain degree, is that some women, it doesn't mean you have to do it very publicly to enjoy good and forbid evil, but at the same time you can do it to your capacity. So I think every woman should say, how can I contribute back to this religion? Islam, believe it or not, was built on the backbone of women. The first martyr in Islam is a woman. Sumayya was tied in the streets, was beaten up. Even the Prophet walked past the streets and he could see the family of Ammar ibn Yasir and Sumayya being beaten, and literally she was the first martyr that was stabbed and killed. The Prophet himself has said, if it wasn't for the wealth of Khadija and the sword of Ali, Islam would have never flourished. Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, and all these women they literally contributed so much to early Islam, the development of early Islam. And then now we come to now in modern day, we feel like women are very discouraged when it comes to religious service. It is discouraged. I've been doing religious service now publicly for 20 years. It is discouraged, and if people are they are made to feel as if women do not have a place in terms of Islamic tabligh.
It's get in the kitchen and
get in the kitchen at home. No, you have to. As a Muslim woman, as a man and woman, you have to care obviously about your household, about your family, and you have to also care about the development of society and development of community and the prospect of Islam and the flourishment of Islam is an Islamic requirement. So I think we as Muslim women, and it's very interesting because in early Islam, women contributed so much, and we know at the end of time, women are going to, Imam al-Mahdi, as you can see, the savior at the back, women will contribute towards that and support Imam Mahdi, and will even be generals within the army of Imam al-Mahdi. So you see the participation of women at the beginning, at the end, but here in the middle, we're having discouragement, do this, do that. And unfortunately, if we don't occupy our time with something that's good, we're going to occupy our time with something that is not good. And that is the reality.
True. Thank you so much, Sister Zahra. I feel like you've given such a wealth of knowledge that I'm going to think about for weeks to come and go over. And we've learned so much, and I think our viewers will definitely, take this back and hopefully implement the things that you mentioned in their lives as well. So thank you so much for your time today.
No, honestly, thank you both, and inshallah, many more opportunities like this to come,
inshallah. Thank you so much. Our journey of conversations continue, and we're very excited to keep exploring topics that matter to you. So stay connected and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Please don't forget to like and share. Ma'as salama.